There is a striking contradiction in how we imagine the world's great alpine escapes. For decades, the travel industry has sold us a singular, highly polished vision of mountain luxury. Swiss-style chalets nestled in manicured valleys, heated gondolas carrying skiers to pristine slopes, and quiet, expensive villages where a simple lunch costs more than a week of groceries elsewhere. We are told that true alpine beauty must be accompanied by a premium price tag, or else we are settling for less. But if you look far to the east, where the massive steppes of Central Asia meet the towering peaks of the Tian Shan, you will find a city that quietly tears up this entire playbook. Almaty, the cultural heart of Kazakhstan, sits directly at the foot of mountains that rival the Swiss Alps in height and beauty, yet it remains almost entirely overlooked by the mainstream tourist crowds. Here, the snow-capped ridges rise like massive white walls directly behind Soviet-era modernist blocks, creating a visual landscape of dramatic, raw contrasts. Welcome back to the Off-Screen Traveler, where we step away from the polished tourist trails to uncover the real unfiltered stories of global destinations. To understand Almaty, you must first understand the scale of the mountains that define it. The Transili-Alatau Range, part of the legendary Tian Shan system, rises abruptly to over 4,000 meters just a short drive from the city center. This close proximity creates a unique urban rhythm. In Almaty, the wilderness is not a distant weekend escape. It is a constant, looming presence. You can walk out of a modern, third-wave coffee shop on the city's pedestrian Arbat Street, and within 30 minutes, find yourself standing at the base of a roaring alpine waterfall. The mountains act as a natural compass, guiding your eyes upward and providing a sense of geographical grounding that is increasingly rare in the flat, sprawling metropolises of the West. It is a city where the border between the urban grid and the untamed wilderness is thin, porous, and easily crossed. At the gateway to these peaks lies Medeu, a monument of Soviet-era alpine engineering that remains a central pillar of local life. Built in the 1970s, this massive concrete speed skating rink sits at an elevation of 1,600 meters, surrounded by steep forested slopes. In its heyday, Medeu was known as the factory of world records, where the thin mountain air and pure glacial water, ice allowed athletes to achieve unprecedented speeds. Today, it remains a lively public sanctuary. On winter weekends, thousands of locals gather here to skate under the open sky, their laughter echoing off the concrete walls. There are no corporate sponsors, no exclusive VIP clubs, and no barrier to entry. It is a space designed for the public, reflecting a philosophy of outdoor access that stands in sharp contrast to the commercialized ski resorts of Europe. Climbing the famous stairs of health above the rink, you look back to see the skaters gliding like tiny silver reflections against the dark green pine forests. Just above Medeu, the gondola rises toward Shymbulak, a world-class ski resort that challenges any preconceptions about Central Asian travel. The cable cars glide quietly over deep valleys and pine-covered ridges, carrying you to an elevation of over 3,200 meters. At the top station, the air is thin, crisp, and biting cold. The panoramic view is breathtaking, a sea of jagged snow-draped peaks stretching south toward the Chinese border. For a fraction of the cost of a lift ticket in Chamonix or St. Moritz, you are granted access to the same dry, powdery snow and expansive runs. Yet, Shymbulak has retained a local, unpretentious charm. On the outdoor wooden terrace of the Yurt Cafe at the summit, travelers sit side by side with local ski instructors, sipping hot tea from ceramic cups and sharing stories of the day's runs. It is a place where mountain luxury is stripped of its pretense, returned to its core elements of wind, snow, and shared warmth. When you descend back into the city, you enter a landscape of deep historical layers. Almaty was designed under a strict Soviet grid system, characterized by wide, tree-lined avenues, massive concrete buildings, and public parks that act as the city's green lungs. It is an architecture of heavy, brutalist forms, yet it is softened by the presence of thousands of mature deciduous trees that shade the streets in the summer and turn golden in the autumn. Walking through Pamphilov Park, you encounter the Zenkov Cathedral, a towering wooden structure built entirely without nails in the early 20th century. Its brightly painted domes and intricate details stand as a surviving fragment of imperial history, having withstood the devastating earthquakes that leveled the rest of the old city. The air around the cathedral is thick with the scent of pine resin and beeswax, and the quiet murmur of pigeons feeding in the square creates a peaceful sanctuary within the urban hustle. The true culinary and commercial pulse of Almaty beats inside the Green Bazaar. For generations, this historic covered market has served as the gathering place for the city's diverse populations. Walking through the entrance, you are hit by a sensory wall of aromas, the sweet smell of dried apricots and walnuts, the sharp tang of pickled vegetables, and the rich, savory scent of roasted meats. In the meat pavilion, rows of vendors display traditional Kazakh delicacies, including kazai, a sausage made from horse meat and seasoned with garlic and black pepper, and kumis, fermented mare's milk that has been a staple of nomadic life for centuries. But the bazaar also tells the story of Almaty's complex demographic history. At the Korean food stalls, descendants of Koreans deported to Central Asia in the 1930s sell spicy salads and marinated vegetables, blending East Asian flavors with local ingredients. It is a place of raw, unfiltered trade where a transaction is not just an exchange of money, but a conversation. Beyond the city limits, the landscape opens up into the vast, silent spaces of the Kazakh steppe. A 3-hour drive east brings you to the Cheren Canyon, a dramatic gorge of red sandstone that looks like a geological tear in the flat desert plain. Known locally as the Valley of Castles, the canyon wind has carved the red rocks into towering towers, arches, and columns that shift in color from deep ochre to bright orange as the sun moves across the sky. Walking along the canyon floor, surrounded by walls that rise up to 300 meters, you are struck by the absolute silence. Unlike the Grand Canyon in America, there are no guardrails, no paved paths, and no tour buses. You are left alone with the scale of the earth, experiencing a raw connection to nature that has been largely managed out of the Western national park systems. Continuing deeper into the countryside, you reach the Kolsai Lakes, 3 emerald mirrors nestled in the forested valleys of the northern Tian Shan. The lower lake is surrounded by tall spruce trees that reflect perfectly in the still, dark green water. A few hours hike up the trail lies Lake Kandy, famous for its sunken forest. Following a massive landslide in 1911, the valley flooded, submerging a forest of spruce trees. Today, the dead trunks rise out of the cold, turquoise water like the masts of ghost ships, while their branches remain preserved beneath the surface by the freezing alpine temperatures. Standing on the shore of Kandy, watching the fog roll off the pine trees and drift across the water, you feel a deep sense of isolation. It is a landscape that feels ancient, untouched, and indifferent to the passage of time. In the search for new travel horizons, we often seek out the destinations that are already familiar to us, choosing the comfort of well-worn paths. But Almaty offers a different kind of travel. It is a place that challenges us to look beyond our expectations, to find alpine luxury in Central Asia, and to appreciate the beauty of a city that refuses to hide its complex, raw history. By stepping off the screen and embracing the silent spaces of the steppe and the cold winds of the Tian Shan, we connect with a world that remains authentic, challenging, and profoundly real. What kind of travel experiences are you looking for in 2026? Have you ever explored the rising destinations of Central Asia? Share your travel stories in the comments below, and do not forget to subscribe to the Off-Screen Traveler for more unfiltered travel guides.